transitioned away from the AFC East. We are on to the NFC East. We've been covering all of the teams that we can possibly cover over here at Roster Up. And tonight, we've got a good one of our most entertaining show hosts, great follow on social, phenomenal opinions right here. Just a good listen. Joe over at Giant Up. How's it going, man?
It's going good, man. That was a heck of an intro, dude. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's going good, man. A lot of sadness over the last few years with the Giants that we'll get into, but it's looking like we got greener pastures coming. So I'm excited to talk Giants today.
I think so, and we're going to kick it off with a little bit of sadness. I'm not going to lie. I can't cherry coat it for the people, especially you New Yorkers. You're tough. You can handle it. You'll be fine. It's going to be brutal to open this up, but I think there's a lot of positives that we're going to go into here. So, Joe, you and I talked before the show just about the last few years with the Giants. When we kind of started digging into this thing, we found a lot of key metrics that were, like you said, just discouraging. But as you have a new GM, new coaching staff, I want to transition quickly over to the positives after we quickly review 2021. And a couple of those things is, the Giants last year, it was brutal, right? You finally got rid of Jason Garrett. We've talked about him. I had to watch him. Brutal to watch him in Dallas. You guys had to experience that for a couple of years. Felt terrible for you. Even though it was the Giants, it was brutal to watch. What he did to Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley run into a brick wall. And then honestly, Dave Gettleman, just an awful, awful GM. Terrible decisions. He hit lightning once, or caught lightning in a bottle down there in Carolina. But apart from that, he's just awful at building a team. I think it showed, and they finally had to let him go. And the Giants are a stable organization. They don't want to make knee-jerk reactions, so they at least gave him a chance. And honestly, at the end of it all, it was truly time. It was beyond time to let a team go that has not had a winning record in the last at any point in the last 5 years. And then when you kind of look at the Giants, they played the most one-score games in 5 of the last 6 seasons. And they haven't had a winning record at any point. Those are definitely some things that are a tough pill to swallow and clearly led to the firing. Those things are by far anomalies. Those have got to change at some point. I think they're going to change. You guys had some great offseason additions in the front office and in the coaching staff. So why don't you give me a quick review of 2021, the relief I know you had to feel cleaning house, and then as you look ahead towards Brian Daboll, year number 1.
Yeah, 2021, like you said, and the last few years have been brutal for the Giants. I mean, just constant disappointment after disappointment, constantly coming up short of the win total that they're projected to get going into the year. I mean, we finally think we have some momentum, even though it was still a 6-10 season. We were playing teams a little bit more competitively 2 years ago. We thought last year we'd actually be able to build off that and grow off that and give this regime its real shot. And there was a little bit of excitement going into this year, I'm not going to lie. And obviously, as we know, they won 4 games, completely shattered everyone's hearts. Jason Garrett was a mess. Joe Judge, I couldn't defend by the end of the season. It was a mess. And Gettleman just made poor decision after poor decision. He finally felt the heat. He finally felt the sweat on the back of his neck, and he was like, I really got to push and do something. So last offseason, just going for Kenny Golladay, giving him all the money in the world, and just sinking us into the cap nightmare that Joe Shane is desperately trying to dig us out of now. It was a mess. It was all a mess, and I'm glad now that it's behind us, and I'm glad that we've cleaned house because we desperately needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it was certainly time. So as you guys have cleaned house and you're looking forward to this season, it's going to take a year or two to kind of turn over that mess. Fortunately, in the NFL, it is a league where you can quickly pivot and you can have that turnover and still experience significant progressions. So you guys have the easiest schedule in the NFL right now as things currently stand. All right. So as you look ahead to 2022, with your projected win total and being projected to finish last in the division, what are your realistic expectations that you're looking for this season?
I mean, realistically, we've improved in a lot of ways in terms of coaching staff, some of the talent that we're going to see on the field this year. I'll give Gettleman one little shred of credit. I don't know if this was him that did this, but trading back last year and giving us the opportunity to have 2 first-round picks this year. We're bringing in a lot of young talent this year. So I want to bring back the competitiveness with the Giants. I mean, we're going to see a team that does have improved talent and improved coaching. So I want a competitive season. Finally, I want teams to respect us. I'd love to hit around our win total this year. I think that's possible, around 7 or 8 wins. I think that's a really realistic thing. And if things just end up clicking even more, I mean, we can see something bigger. Maybe we can push to 9 or 10 wins. Like you said, we do have one of the easier schedules that we've had in the last few years, which is also something else that's on our side this year. But I'm not even going to ask for too much after all of this nightmare, the nightmare that it's been the last 5 years. I would just love to see them be competitive again, win around 7 or 8 games.
I think that would be a massive step forward. After what we've seen the last couple of years, 7 or 8 wins. I know Vegas is sharp, so if they're setting it at 7, then it's reasonable for them to get there, especially with their strength of schedule. But after the way they've underperformed for 5 straight years, that would be a huge step forward. To get to 7 or 8 wins, I mean, I know it's all relative. Everyone wants to win the Super Bowl and has this hope, but let's be realistic. I think that would be huge for the franchise, and you could actually maybe gauge where Daniel Jones sits and where some of his talent sits. Because you look at some of the offseason additions you guys had in the draft, right? Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau. I know you were just ecstatic about him on draft night. That was fun coverage when we got to talk about him as well. And it's a massive infusion of talent on both sides of the ball. That offensive line was not good. We talked about it last year. They were just not good. And it looks like you're getting an infusion of talent on both sides of the ball. What are you expecting in the trenches this year from the Giants?
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's funny. I was thinking about it the other day. I'm just finally excited for the potential to even have a middle of the pack offensive line this year. Would be a phenomenal step forward for the Giants if we can somehow get around that middle of the pack. I mean, like you said, we're bringing in Evan Neal. Andrew Thomas was one of the best players on the Giants last year. To be honest, his season was like the only little bright spot that we had. So being able to bring him back and then making the changes on the interior, bringing in guys like Mark Glowinski, John Feliciano. I mean, just solid, good tier guys on the interior that we didn't have last year. We got killed with injuries too. I mean, we've been getting killed with injuries on top of the lack of talent too, and the lack of coaching. I mean, just a lot of things going wrong for the Giants. But yeah, I'm so excited about the potential of having a mediocre offensive line. Listen, the expectations for the Giants after the last 5 years, everyone just wants to return to normalcy right now. Like anything normal and mediocre play, something good, because it's been dreadful the last few years.
I think what's going to be exciting is that will potentially bring in a much higher pass rate. But, we can talk about, passing the ball versus running the ball. Jason Garrett just always ran into a brick wall. I'm going to be a guy that I think, don't beat your head against a brick wall. If it's a loaded box on early downs, throw the ball. If it's a light box, you can run the ball. There was no creativity there. There's so much room for improvement with the lack of creativity that had been there. You guys, 1st and 10, were just running it up the middle. 2nd and long, running up the middle. You guys were 31st on average the last 2 years in early down efficiency, a.k.a. third down avoidance. That's abysmal. Daniel Jones and a terrible offensive line were constantly in 3rd and long, right? So then according to Sharp Football Metrics, shout out to the book he does, just phenomenal stats. Go check it out if you guys haven't. The Bills were top 10 both years, 2nd and 8th respectively over the last couple of seasons. That's a massive difference. Brian, what Dabo did with Josh Allen, I don't know if it can be done with Daniel Jones, but at the same time, the way he designed an offense to improve early down efficiency and actually make his quarterback's life better, I think is going to make a massive difference for Daniel Jones. Even if at the end of the year we find out Daniel Jones sucks and he's not the guy, he's probably going to at least been given a chance to make things happen. So, last year we looked at running the ball versus this year passing the ball more. I like some of the creative styles that like Stefanski and Shanahan do when they run the ball, but you didn't have that. But so now you've got a guy that's going to have a much higher pass rate. Offensively, not just an infusion of talent, what kind of play calling are you looking for out of Daboll? Are you expecting such a high pass rate that he had in Buffalo, or do you think he's going to tweak things specifically for Daniel Jones and how he's performed over the last couple of years as a passer?
Yeah, I honestly think that we're going to see more passing. Like it's evident that when they drafted in the second round, I mean, there were a few other needs that the Giants really, really needed. And you could have argued that they didn't really need to draft a receiver in the second round, but you can see where Daboll's head's at. You can see what he wants to do this year. He drafted Wan'Dale Robinson. We have a very murky receiver room, but a receiver room filled with potential talent. I mean, Kenny Golladay maybe can have a comeback year. Sterling Shepard's been on and off injured, but when he plays, he's really effective. And then we got Wan'Dale Robinson, and we got Darius Slayton, who may or may not get cut. We don't 100% know yet. And then we also have Kadarius Toney. So I think 100% he's going to pass the ball a lot more, and I think you're going to see Saquon in a lot more passing opportunities as well. Kenny Golladay even said that this is a much more pass-friendly offense this year, and he's actually feeling a lot more comfortable in the offense this year. So we'll see if that makes a difference. But exactly, it's all going to come down to Daniel Jones. It's all going to come down to how he plays. If he's not efficiently passing the ball well, then there's going to be some discussions on what to do with him, whether to kind of tweak the offense a little bit and have to go in a different direction. But I think you're going to see a lot more passing.
So you mentioned Saquon. What are you expecting out of him this season? Is he kind of just is his decline going to continue, or are you expecting maybe some flashbacks to 2019?
I'm expecting him. It's sad to say, but that rookie year that he had and the way he looked after the last 3 years being just pummeled with injuries, I don't know if he can ever fully return to that form that he had where he looked like one of the best running backs in the league his rookie year. I think he could have a potential, though, to have a really effective year if the offensive line plays where I think they will play, because he hasn't had the luxury of being able to run behind a good offensive line or an effective offensive line. So if we can have one that's playing at least mediocre this year, I think that'll just be an immense weight off his shoulders. And I've been hearing a lot of good things in camp, like he's looking more explosive. So I'm hoping that he could have a comeback year, and I really think he could. I mean, we've seen it once. It's been a long time, but I still want to be optimistic about Saquon, even though it's tough. It's tough.
You know, his running style is more fit for open field explosiveness, one cut and go, and that's just not how the offense was designed. My fear, like you said, is the style that made him dominant and so explosive. Those injuries really cut into that. You know, last year was a freak thing, him landing on his teammate's foot, and after he seemed to be getting healthy and really being utilized well. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I think on the bright side, the way Daboll designs his offense is he's not reliant on Barkley. You guys were over reliant on the running back for far too long, and Daboll can design an offense that's not over reliant. He can maximize strengths elsewhere and really get the ball out of Daniel Jones' hands a lot quicker. He can get them in third and short so that he doesn't have to be in such a terrible position throwing the ball. You know, so he's either trying to get rid of the ball, he's either trying to get that first down on third and long, right? So you're forced to, be over aggressive, and you're likely facing more pressure because you're having to hold on to the ball longer. And then if you don't throw an interception or get hit or something, he's probably trying to dump it off to Saquon in a very bad situation. Just none of that really is optimal because you're either not in a good spot originally to get the first down to keep the chains moving, but then Saquon's constantly put in a bad spot to where it's like, just make something happen. And he's 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage and three dudes are in front of him. They're like, do something. You know, I think Daboll will remove them from that situation, which is kind of what you want to see, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, Saquon, having a lot of that pressure off him. But I also want to say, as much as I love Saquon and as much as I think Kenny Golladay can even improve and have a better year, because, there's only looking up after last year, not catching one single touchdown in a season for the guy that you're paying $18 million a year to. I think Kadarius Toney is going to be electric this year. I think he's going to be a dominant. I think he could be a dominant player in the NFL. I really do. On a team last year that was just pitiful on offense and absolutely atrocious, and he barely even wanted to be on the field last year. He had a game where he almost had 200 receiving yards. He's crushing it in camp this year. I think he's one of the most talented offensive players that the Giants have this year, and I think it's still very under the radar. And that's probably one of my more hot takes this year. I think he's going to be one of the most explosive players on the Giants this year if he remains on the field and he keeps his head in football. If he wants to play football, it's going to be dangerous. I think Kadarius Toney could be that good.
Mm-hmm. Well, we saw just glimmers of it last year where he was super explosive, including that with 13 catch game. And then, it was all kind of downhill there for some of the issues that he experienced. But if they can find a way to get him the ball in optimal situations, I mean, why not just utilize your playmakers? He's young, he's athletic. You invested in him. Like, figure out a way to maximize what he is, and then maybe that'll open things up for Golladay downfield, and you can actually get some value off of that contract you gave him, right? So those would be some of the things I'm looking forward to seeing on the Giants side. Realistically, before we move on to defense, because I want to get your thoughts there and Thibodeau's impact, what are you expecting from a win projection, right? So we talked about getting to 7 would be great. They're projected to finish last. Just be honest. Like, what do you expect? Where do you expect them to finish in the division? Do you expect them to compete for a divisional title, or do you expect them to say, hey, if we finish third, second at the best in the division, that would be a huge win, and that's realistically what I expect?
I mean, it'd be incredible if they could, because the NFC East is the most bizarre division ever. It's almost like the same team almost never wins twice in a row. It's such a, and I feel like all the teams, you just never know who's going to take it that year coming in. But yeah, I mean, I would just love not to be the punching bag of the division like we were last year at 4-13 and just being completely in last place. Yeah, anything, just moving up, just moving into that respectful, like, you're going to have to come in and actually try to beat this team, or they're going to give you a good fight. Like, you don't have to walk in and not even care, and they're going to put up 8 points a game and just not be any sort of threat. I see them sort of slotting in, depending on how competitive the division is this year. I think the AFC is going to be way more competitive than the NFC. I really think they could. I mean, it'd be great if I'm going to go a little crazy here. I want them to come in second place at least. I want them to come in second place in the division, and that would be amazing. Okay. If they still have 7 or 8 wins and the division's pretty good this year and they're like third still, that's understandable. But it'd be great if they could come in second, just have some kind of respect and some kind of dominance over some other NFC East teams would be awesome.
What are you expecting out of the defense? It's tough for an edge rusher to make a big impact as a rookie. We saw Chase Young do it. I think he's kind of an anomaly, but at the end of the day, what do you expect out of Tibbs? What do you expect out of this defense?
It's funny because as much as pumped as I am to get Kayvon Thibodeau, I think the most exciting addition to this defense this year for me is Wink Martindale still. I think as much as I did like Pat Graham, he was a good defensive coordinator. I think we have another level. The coaching this year, I'm so excited about. Obviously, I'm so excited about Dable and Kafka for the offense. But Wink Martindale, he's just a veteran and an established, really, really good defensive coordinator. And having someone in the building that is respected, that players are going to follow and like really, really believe in, and everyone's loving Wink so far. He's well established. Like, I think he is the biggest addition to this defense. I think he's going to make the biggest difference for all of these players. I think, yeah, like you said, it's tough for a defensive end to have a huge impact year one. I think we're a little bit thin at certain positions. I think corner, we're very young and a little bit thin. Safety, we're a little bit thin. Our secondary might be a little bit tough. But I think this is as excited as I've been for a team in terms of their pass rushing. I think they are in a better position than they have been in the last 4 or 5 years in terms of getting some pressure to a quarterback, which is a great start to any defense. And, I mean, we'll see how some of these younger corners and safeties play, but I think Wink is going to, grow and mold this defense into, his identity is just really going to bleed through with these guys. I think he's going to play aggressive. And I like the one thing he said. He's like, we're not going to let offenses decide what's going on. We're going to set the tone. We're going to play our style of game and make offenses adjust to that. So I love Wink. I think he was like a very underrated, huge addition for the Giants.
If him and Daboll can really complement one another, I like to see what this franchise could do over the course of the next couple of years. Obviously, you guys got to get out of cap hell. You've got to develop some of these players. You got to see what Daniel Jones is. I'm not a Daniel Jones believer. I never was. But, I'm a big believer in the organization, actually. Like, I wasn't a believer in Josh Allen coming out because some of the things that he struggled with were key indicators of a lack of success, over the course of a career. But he did have some metrics that also popped. I think in hindsight now, I view the organization and the coaching staff and the scheme as far more important than just the quarterback himself. Like Sam Darnold, mentally broken, right? Trevor Lawrence, concerned. Daniel Jones was never going to work. Like you look at Dak Prescott falling in Dallas, what he did, it was a good organization, good fit that had talent around him. They were very fortunate there. Josh Allen had a phenomenal organization, stable. He had a defensive-minded coach that let the offense do what it needed to do and develop. Josh Allen ran a good bit. Then he started throwing the ball, getting the ball out of his hands, and he improved his accuracy and completion percentages, and it let him develop. Allen's always going to be the anomaly, I think, but the point is organization matters. You got to be able to build around these guys, give them a scheme that helps them function. That's one of the number one things I'm looking for out of this team. So, honestly, Joe, as we kind of wrap it up here, I'll toss it over to you for any final thoughts towards Giants Nation and your outlook on 2022.
Yeah, my final thoughts for sure would be we've seen some extremely dark days. I mean, watching this team the last few years and how atrocious it's been, we are stepping into something new. It's not going to be immediate. We're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. We're not going to win the division this year. It's not just going to be an instant. Daniel Jones is going to be amazing, but we're on the right path. We're on a path where we're, building a good organization. We have some good coaches. We have the right GM. Hopefully he keeps making the right moves, and he's the right GM. He still has to prove himself, Joe Shane, and the dark times are behind us. I want to say to all the Giants fans, we can move into a place where we can believe in something. We can root for something and watch something grow, hopefully, in what can be a Super Bowl contender.
Joe, I appreciate you hopping on. Go check him out over at Giant Up, Giant Up Pod on Twitter, rosterupmedia.com/Giant Up. He puts out some great content, great tweets, great follow. He's always whipping off some takes, but they're also well thought out. So you guys go check him out. Joe, thank you so much for hopping on, man. I've really enjoyed this, and we'll be looking out for what the Giants can do this season.
Thank you so much.